Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are going to give everyone just about a minute or so to pop into the chat, and then we'll kind of go from there. I hope everyone is enjoying your Wednesday evening, and I'm going to go ahead and get started off with some introductions and a little bit of an outline for the program. I do want to share before we get started, if you can, on your page, if you can scroll over yourself and hit the three dots, where we would like to ask everyone to make sure that your name is listed, and then if you can add your class year, your graduation year from Sidwell to the end of your name, that would be really great. Just so everyone kind of has an idea of which classes everyone is from. Yeah. All right. So thank you everyone for being here for this program on networking with other Sidwell Friends alumni. My name is Sarah Duda, and I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement here at Sidwell. And I'm very excited to introduce Tom Waugh, who will be moderating this program. And he will move on from there to introduce Andy and Lesley, class of 2012 and 2014, for both that LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning, and they're here to give us all some tips on how to use this platform to connect with other alums. The idea for this program really came out of alumni feedback that they were really interested in learning more about how to network with each other as we're developing different virtual programs and resources for you. And I would recommend that everyone periodically check the alumni section of the website for other offerings. This is just one of many virtual programs of this nature that we'll be bringing you over the next few months. Over the course of this program, if you do want to submit a question, and then the second half of the program will be a Q&A session with Lesley, Tom, and Andy. You can simply hit the chat feature and type in your question there, and we will receive that and pass the question along to Tom, who will run the Q&A session. As an overview of how things will flow, when Tom and I are done with our introductions, Lesley and Andy are going to go through a presentation and also a live demonstration on LinkedIn showing you really how to search and use that platform. And then really about the second half of the program will be a Q&A around 8:35 or so. My other housekeeping tip or item that I did want to share is that we will be recording this session to put on the alumni website for a little while, perhaps the next year or so, just as an ongoing resource for alums who weren't at this program to show them a little bit more about how to network. And with that, I am going to move to an introduction of Tom Waugh, who is an upper school economics and social studies teacher who is going into either his 13th or 14th school year at Sidwell this fall. He's been here so long, we can't remember exactly when the start date was. Prior to being at Sidwell, Tom had a background in finance, and at Sidwell, he's also the faculty advisor for the Financial Investment Club in the upper school. And we all personally know him to be a very avid networking advocate himself. And two really great examples of him illustrating networking in front of students and really showing its value. Number one is when he brings young alums periodically to his classes to be guest speakers who can share a little bit about life after Sidwell with students. And he also organizes trips to New York City for his classes and for the Financial Investment Club to meet with alums and parents there who work in various investment and financial organizations. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Tom, and thank you.
All right, thanks, Sarah. First of all, I want to apologize for the way I look. My wife, she told me that I look like a Civil War general, and I think she means like someone who hasn't seen clean water in a couple of months and and hasn't seen anybody without a musket as well for maybe a few months. But I take that to mean that she probably thinks I have leadership qualities. Okay, so Sarah asked me to talk about networking, and before I introduce the stars of the show, Lesley and Andy. And it's funny because the word networking, I don't know, for some reason, it used to really bug me. I think because when I was in New York, there were these like super aggressive, like overly ambitious people who were all into networking. It just seemed sort of, I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way. But over time, I've sort of readjusted my understanding of that word to think about more of it's like It's more of connecting and helping each other. And I, of course, fully embrace that concept. And as my former students know, I love to view the world through an anthropologist's eyes, even though I'm not even close to being an anthropologist. But well, I think we can agree that humans are herd animals, and we survive only in highly coordinated groups. We're especially tuned to help each other, to help other people with whom we've had a shared experience. And everyone on this call has this shared experience of being at Sidwell. And first and foremost, that means that everyone asks you how well you know the Obamas or the Clintons. But once we get past that, it means that you have all worked together to succeed at a highly competitive, but also a highly cooperative school. And my sense is that you all know how fortunate you are to have this network. And we're also fortunate now to have a platform like LinkedIn to be able to find each other and to engage with each other in a relatively drama-free version of the cyber world, right? And so we don't have anybody better to enlighten us about all these possibilities than our own Lesley Chen-Young, class of 2014, and Andy Linder, class of 2012. And so I'll just give you a brief introduction. I think they wrote these themselves, so maybe this is true. I don't know. It sounds somewhat embellished, but we'll see. So Lesley, she's a talent insights consultant at LinkedIn by day and founder and head coach of Commonwealth Coaching by night. Motivated by connecting the world's potential to well-being, particularly for women of color. She's dedicated to integrating data into everyday decision-making and inspiring behavioral change at the company and individual levels. At LinkedIn, Lesley guides emerging technology companies in understanding supply and demand, of the global workforce. At Commonwealth Coaching, Lesley coaches young professionals to define and build their own generational wealth. Lesley holds a BA in Environmental Science and Policy from Duke and currently lives in Chicago. This spring, she virtually participated in Sidwell's Let Your Life Speak morning, in which alumni spoke to the theme of welcoming a wider community before students. Maybe more important than any of this is that Lesley's recently engaged. Congratulations to Lesley, and more congratulations to her fiance. And Andy is an account executive for LinkedIn's e-learning platform. LinkedIn Learning is the name of it. LinkedIn Learning is revolutionizing the industry by marrying LinkedIn's professional data, over 600 million members, with lynda.com's top quality business, creative, and technical content to ensure the most relevant and personalized learning experience to date. Andy manages full cycle sales partnerships and works with companies of all industries to help develop a culture of learning at their organizations. He has a BS in journalism from Northwestern University and has lived in San Francisco, New York, and Chicago since graduating from Sidwell. Last year, Andy returned to campus to participate in Sidwell's Let Your Life Speak morning, in which alumni spoke to the theme of Imagine the Future of Learning before students. I have fond memories of having both Lesley and Andy in my class and enjoy keeping the connection alive. I'll now turn the screen over to Lesley and Andy. Everybody pretend like you're hearing applause.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Waugh, for a lovely introduction.
Perfect. Well, we're super excited to have you all. I definitely want to check out that musket you have, Mr. Waugh, later on. And I will say I'm wearing my Sidwell golf polo. I did play on the golf team, didn't really play, but I practiced with them. So anyway, but we're really excited to put together a presentation and really to help you understand a couple things. So here, let me just share my screen really quickly. But in terms of an agenda, how you can get noticed through LinkedIn, how you can expand your reach through LinkedIn, and then how you can engage with other Sidwell alumni. So again, we're super excited about this. We think that obviously Lesley and I are a little bit biased. I have the pure fortune and honor of being able to work with her at the same company. She is a lot more successful than I am, but regardless, to show you a couple tips and hopefully you learn something. And we definitely want to make this interactive. So towards the middle, we'll turn it over to the Q&A. Mr. Waugh will read us questions that you all have. So definitely jot those down. Make sure that we get to them. And then I know, I'll speak for Lesley also, we're happy to connect with any and all of you after this as well. So please don't forget that. Cool. So I will turn it over to Lesley for a LinkedIn overview.
Awesome. And Andy, I think we might be seeing the web version of your deck, which also works too.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, like Andy said, please write down your questions as soon as you have them, send them over in the chat and or ask them out loud if you'd like. But wanted to give a brief background for those that LinkedIn may be a little bit unfamiliar, or you might be wondering what's the difference between this and Facebook, you know, and there certainly are quite a wide variety of tools out there, but at LinkedIn, we really do try to be the center place for understanding the world of work, connecting with others in your space or in new industries, and helping surface opportunities to you that could be helpful in advancing your career. And I thought it would be helpful just to set the stage with what we're seeing at a company level across, honestly, the entire globe. And it's probably not surprising that even in the wake of coronavirus, in the wake of so much going on in the US and the world, there's quite a bit of change happening, whether you are a recent grad or you're well established in your career. We see that coming up in kind of three primary ways. The first being competition within the job market. There's just so many really qualified folks out there that are all looking at very similar roles. And so having to differentiate yourself is something that we hear a lot of folks challenged with. Of course, the emergence of new skills is there too, right? A lot of us, especially in the technology space, are working with technical languages that did not even exist 10 years ago. So trying to keep up with that pace is difficult as well. And then in general, technology is disrupting a lot of industries. So whether you're typically, you know, focused in one industry where you never had to have an online presence, well, in the wake of, you know, everyone being virtual, that is now no longer the norm. So given that, and we can head over to the next slide, Andy, that's really where we try to help a lot of people go towards LinkedIn to try to become both more productive and more successful. This platform is designed to connect you with people. It's designed to connect you with jobs. And so if you're finding yourself struggling on how to do one of those two things, I hope that you learn a lot from this session. And if you don't, please directly let Andy and I know so we can do it one-on-one. But I'm going to turn it over to Andy to walk over just a couple of tips on how to build out your profile so that it really allows you to take advantage of those opportunities as they come your way.
Awesome. Thanks, Lesley. So obviously it's really important that if you're using LinkedIn, you want to have a good profile. And obviously they tell us to say this, they pay us to say this, but it is true that it helps in so many ways to make sure that you're getting the most out of LinkedIn. And so it all starts with a photo, right? So typically when you go to LinkedIn and you see people's profiles, like it just looks better if they have a profile picture. Like same way on Facebook, if they don't have a picture, it's a little bit sketchy. So same thing goes here. Make sure that you're alone in your picture. Lesley and I were both part of a new grad rotational program at LinkedIn where we did a little bit of customer service, and it's kind of funny. It's technically against our terms and conditions if somebody else is in your picture. So don't let that happen. We probably won't get you in trouble, but regardless, just make sure people know it's you. You know, if it's a headshot from the shoulders up, that sort of thing, neutral background, you get the picture there. And you know, professional clothing can mean anything that's specific to you. Like I do have a button-down shirt in my picture, but given that, you know, I'm in tech, like I'm probably not going to wear a coat and tie. But if I was in finance, like Mr. Waugh used to be, maybe I would wear a coat and tie. That might be like what professional means. So I think that's up to you. And you can see there the stat. Profiles with a photo get 20 times more profile views. So really important. And we'll talk more about this later on. But when recruiters are searching for you on the back end, all of the things that we're talking about today will be prioritized when a recruiter does their search. So for one person to be able to reach out to you, like, hey, Cole, I saw your profile. I think you'd be a really good fit for this job or internship. That costs that person upwards of $10,000 typically for, again, one individual to be able to send you messages like that. So you want to make your profile good. All right, sorry about that. Next step is to add your education. This is a screenshot here of Miss Lesley's profile. So now, as of last year, you can now put your high school onto LinkedIn. So before you could still put it in there, but it wouldn't show up with the logo. So I think it got released last July. Is now Sidwell's logo will appear if you try to put in your high school, which is really cool. And again, we'll talk about the alumni group, the alumni tool, to help bring this to life as well. So you can see Lesley lists the years that she was at Sidwell. And then with Duke, obviously, she put that in as well with her major, her minor. You can also, as you see under Sidwell there, put in the clubs that you were a part of. I did this for my school area as well. Can't hurt. Again, the thing with recruiters, again, it all goes back to people finding you through LinkedIn, is that everything is searchable. So any word you put on your profile, a recruiter can search for on the back end and find you that way. So I was never in a sales role before being at LinkedIn, but I was the VP of sales for Challah for Hunger, where we sold challah bread to the student body, and that might have been how they found me. Who knows? But yes, I did find my job through LinkedIn, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so that's the education. Putting in your work experience as well. So we have a LinkedIn member named Philip McGloin, who also went to Sidwell, featured here. He was class of 2013. And so he put on, you can see there, I mean, he's worked all over the world. He's worked in China, as well as the US, back in Bethesda now. But you can see that with his, I guess it's Lucy scholarship. I don't know what we call that, but he put in like different links of projects that he was part of or articles where he was featured. Like, feel free to put that in, putting in, you know, what you've done at a given position. I am typically giving advice to say, just copy in whatever's on your resume. Again, with LinkedIn, you're not restricted to one page. So my philosophy personally is more the better. Again, all goes back to recruiters. You want to put a lot of information there. And then you can see you can designate now a full-time position versus an internship and that sort of thing as well. So put everything on there, even if it's just a part-time job. Obviously this summer, there aren't going to be a lot of lifeguards, but if you've been a lifeguard before, like, put that on LinkedIn. Like, whatever you feel like you can speak about in an interview, that's important to you, that should be on your LinkedIn profile, at least in my opinion. So there's that. Volunteering experience as well. So if you've done volunteering, you can sort of think of it as, again, just another sort of feather in your cap for interviews. I think that's really important, especially if you've traveled for volunteer experience, putting that on. And then you can see there on the left side, joining groups on LinkedIn is really important. We'll get to more of that, but whatever you put onto your profile is what we call just an experience. You can also follow them as well, and that's really important. And then finally, skills. So this is yet another Sidwell alum, Gigi Stark. She was in my sister's year at Sidwell, class of 2015. And so for right now, your friends, your family, your colleagues, anyone can endorse you for skills on LinkedIn, and that's cool. You know, we think that's really important. And when you're applying to jobs, it's important to highlight that. My job at LinkedIn, I sell our learning platform, as Mr. Waugh mentioned, called LinkedIn Learning. If you do subscribe to LinkedIn, LinkedIn Premium, it comes with LinkedIn Learning, or if your company pays for it, hopefully, that's the goal, you can actually legitimize and sort of formalize what skills you're taking through LinkedIn and post those certifications to your LinkedIn profile. So a couple slides ago with Lesley, she had completed, I think, a customer success course through LinkedIn Learning and decided to post that publicly so that when people go to her profile, they understand that she has those skills in customer success. And then finally, a summary. This is usually when people say, Andy, I think I built a really good profile. Take a look, like rip it to shreds, or if there's anything you think I should add. Typically, people forget the summary. And this is really important because, again, depending on your industry, it can be either in the first person or third person. But it is really, as you see on there on the left, like your elevator pitch, like what makes you, you. Usually for a framework, people will say, oh, Andy, I don't know where to start with this. I usually think about it in 3 paragraphs. What you've done in the past, what you're doing right now, or what you're looking for, and then where you want to be in the future. 3 paragraphs, you can put that in. Lesley and I are going to go through our own profiles to show you what we have. And so my summary is a little bit cheesy, but I feel like I have an excuse because of working at LinkedIn. Awesome. So now I will turn it back to Lesley for the networking component, Networking 101.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. And once you have that profile set up, now is the time to reach out to people on LinkedIn. This is the fun part. Or if you're an introvert like me, maybe the scary part of trying to put yourself out there and potentially make a new connection. So I wanted to give you 3 quick pointers in order to do this effectively. And I really do want to encourage folks to start getting used to reaching out to people on LinkedIn, whether they be current connections or new connections. So tip number 1 is to break out of your silo, whether or not you're actively looking for a new job or you're just trying to stay connected. It is really great to use this platform either in posts or in direct messages to keep up with your network. One of my favorite things to do is to look at the notifications that I get and see who has recently changed their role or who has recently completed a school program. And I'll write a little note saying, hey, congrats, I saw you completed your nursing degree. That's really awesome. And something as simple as that just keeps you top of mind with that person in your network. Or if you're reaching out to someone who is brand new, looking for something that you have in common, and then reaching out, asking them to chat with you for a 15-minute informational interview can be really, really impactful as well. So maybe it's something as small as reaching out to one new person this month, reaching out to one new person by the end of the summer, or just nurturing your current network as the second tip mentions. I definitely want to encourage this group to use this platform not only for research, but to proactively meet new people and have conversations that are even offline. When it comes to that current network, there is no better way to engage than to be there when there are pretty big life milestones. So when you do see someone has changed a career, been promoted, posted an article, you can go ahead and like that article, comment on it, really just stay in touch with them as much as you can. And you never know who will be reaching out to you with a potential question or reaching out to you with a potential opportunity in the future. And lastly, it's great to build a board of advisors. There are so many different types of people that could be within your network, whether you consider them to be former peers, whether you consider them to be potential future employers. There are also people in your network that might not have a very specific thing that you're asking them for a job, but they could still help you navigate that job search process or navigate something that you're going through. So the first person I always like to keep in my arsenal is the advocate. This is a person that I feel probably really comfortable being vulnerable around and can act as that trusted sounding board. You may already have this person in your life, and that's fantastic. And if you don't, potentially looking into mentors that you had in school at Sidwell, mentors that you may have in your college or other programmatic experience, or just others that are within the space you're hoping to get into, reaching out to them to see, hey, do you have any advice for someone who is in my position, in my shoes? The second group here is the strategic in, and I think this is what everyone thinks in networking should lead to, that person that could connect you to individuals or send you a job application. And this is true that this person might come up sometimes, but in my experience, this person comes in when you least expect it. So for example, my current role at LinkedIn, I was actually not looking to join this team, but there was someone who I had met in a one-off situation. I had connected with them on the platform, and they messaged me a couple hours after we had met in person, asking to introduce me to their hiring manager. And from there, I transitioned from being a sales development representative into a completely different department at LinkedIn as a talent insights consultant. And lastly, the subject matter expert. These are people that might be posting articles on LinkedIn or just in general might have a really robust profile that you really admire. I would recommend reaching out to that person with a note asking for that 15-minute informational interview. The worst thing that could happen is they don't respond. That is absolutely the worst thing. And the best thing that could happen is that you might actually develop a relationship with someone that you really admire that could help you learn to navigate your new industry. So with that, I'm gonna breeze through a couple other things you can do regarding networking. On the next page, you'll see the ability to follow companies that you're interested in. So if there are any target companies that are on your radar, you're trying to target after graduating or trying to target as a next play, you can go ahead and follow them to continue to keep abreast of their updates, as well as see any job opportunities that might come your way. On the following page, you'll be able to actually explore jobs specifically based on your search criteria. I love using this search filter, especially looking for jobs that have been posted in the past 24 hours. Typically, if you can apply in those first 24 hours of a job being posted, you have a high likelihood of the recruiter seeing your application and seeing your profile. And lastly, I think is in regards to networking is following those influencers. Influencers might not be the people that answer your email and want to speak to you for 15 minutes, but they could be the people that give you access to articles, show you different ways to think about framing questions, and otherwise inspire potential companies that you might start just based on what they're sharing on the platform. So Andy, I'll pass it back over to you to just highlight a couple Sidwell related things you could do as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Lesley. I think you fit all 3 criteria on my board of advisors, as long as you'll have me for all of them. It's true. I just heard Lesley just in my own head when she was going through that. But in terms of different things that you can do from a Sidwell perspective, and we'll go through this really quickly because I think we want to get to the screen share, or at least I do, to help bring this to life. But we're going to show you the Sidwell alumni group. So this is really cool to be able to network with other alums here. And then also, we're going to show you the alumni tool. So this you can get to this simply by searching for Sidwell Friends School on LinkedIn in the search bar. And there's more information here, but this alumni tool is super powerful, and we'll show you shortly what that can do as well. And then finally, something to keep in mind with just LinkedIn groups in general, use these insights for job interviews. Again, like whenever I talk to anyone, like with sales prospects, especially, like looking them up on LinkedIn, looking at what groups they're part of at LinkedIn or on LinkedIn, really helps you with that research. That doesn't take a lot of time. Also helps you, grow your network, of course, and then lots of tips as well. You'll start to get, highlights in your news feed. And then going back to that recruiter search, Lesley was talking earlier about following companies on LinkedIn. Recruiters, again, if they're looking at a pool of 1,000 candidates, they can hit one button to see who of those 1,000 people follows their company. They would probably rather interview those people that follow your company. So keep that in mind as well. Without further ado, we will exit this screen share. And Lesley, should we switch, or do you have it ready? Or do you want me to do it?
I have it ready.
Awesome. I will stop sharing.
Okay, wonderful. So I hope that I am sharing my Google Chrome browser. Can you see it? Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Sarah.
Yes.
Awesome. So we are going to take you through really just putting into practice some of the things that Andy and I said out loud. And I'm going to start off with my profile and a couple of things that I would recommend if you're just building yours out or hoping to update it. The first is adding in that cover photo. And truthfully, you can see that I've got cherry blossoms here on the National Mall. This is actually a place where I encourage folks to share their personality. So if there's something that you really enjoy, if you love a sports team, if you are really diehard fan for your alma mater, if you want to put Sidwell up there, really anything that showcases your personality and that brings you a lot of happiness, that is something you could definitely use as a cover photo. The other thing that I'll highlight is the ability to edit your public profile and URL, and that's actually within your settings. You can change the URL to your LinkedIn profile page to make sure it doesn't have a bunch of random letters and numbers towards the end of the URL. So of course, I've changed mine to just be, my full name, Lesley Chen-Young, there for ease of access. It's really convenient too, as I'm adding that URL onto any resumes, and I can easily, just have it look really nice on that PDF or on that Word document. The last thing I'll highlight before turning over to Andy is just this beginning section that describes kind of who you are and what you bring to the table. A lot of people by default will use this description section to kind of talk about what they're currently doing, so their current job title. But I highly recommend using some keywords that describe kind of what you are, what you bring to the table, and what differentiates you from others. So for me, I'm always the one asking questions, as Mr. Waugh can attest to when I was in his class, continuously learning and trying to solve problems, whether they are jigsaw puzzles or my customers' supply and demand trends. And so for me, felt really right to add continuous learner and problem solver into that bio there. I know that recruiters are going to continue scrolling down, so that's just a fun place to showcase your personality. And Andy, I'm going to head over to your profile. Any places you want me to highlight here?
Yeah, well, thank you, Lesley. My profile is not nearly as good as Lesley's, but what I would showcase as well is beyond the summary. So I wanted to show everyone sort of an example of a summary. And again, I mentioned that mine is pretty cheesy, but works for me and is something that I could talk about. So that's the first thing. Yeah, so just putting in sort of a headline for me that, I've always been passionate about engaging community through stories and mutual connection. And then I talk about where I've been. So as a graduate of Northwestern School of Journalism, I'm proud to bring these passions for community development and storytelling into LinkedIn, telling them what I do. And then also, what else I do, whether at work. So aside from my main role, I'm always available to talk to students. I love doing it. It's the reason that I've successfully actually referred 12 people to LinkedIn, is just talking to students pretty much every Sunday since I graduated. And then things that I like to do outside of work. So, whether it's boxing or tennis or whatever, or just shouting "Go Cats" because I went to Northwestern. Speaking of that, I would say the other thing that I would want to highlight is the fact that I'm a transfer student. So I actually didn't start at Northwestern my freshman year, but I think that's really important to my story specifically. It's typically in the, ever so often, tell me about yourself interview question. I'll usually talk about that experience and that I started at Tufts University. So for anyone on the line who went there, it's a great school. I loved it, but I was looking for more school spirit and just more going on. And maybe it was Mr. Waugh who inspired me to try finance and econ for a major, and I was part of the Tufts financial group, but I didn't love it. And it breaks my heart to say that in front of Mr. Waugh, but I ended up just hanging out at the newspaper all the time. I was pretty involved with the Horizon at Sidwell. You can see that there in the Sidwell section, but then I decided I wanted to make journalism a major. Of course, I don't do that now, but it is part of the story and I go on from there.
Cool. So hopefully you learn a little bit from both Andy and I's profiles. Feel free to stalk us on LinkedIn and further kind of take note there. But we're going to transition over into just showing you a little bit about what you can do with the Sidwell Friends alumni group, and then what you can do with the Sidwell Friends School page itself. So doing a quick voiceover here for the group. This is a place that is kind of an open forum for anyone who has gone to Sidwell and has a LinkedIn profile. If you aren't a member of this group, I highly recommend typing that into your search bar within the top of the screen. It's Sidwell Friends School Alumni, and one of our lovely alumni relations coordinators will help you to get access into this group. But this is a private group only for people that have gone to Sidwell Friends School. And the purpose of LinkedIn groups is really to create community and share resources. I think a number one myth is that a group kind of has to be from the top down, should be, Sidwell sharing news with their alumni. And of course, we've got, Sarah doing that really beautifully here in her recent post. But what's more exciting is I know a lot of people are looking for ways to engage their alumni community with initiatives they're working on. Maybe you're starting a letter writing campaign. Maybe you've launched an app. Maybe you're looking for a job. Maybe you're just looking to meet someone up for drinks in the Chicago area. This is a great place to actually post in this group to try to engage with alumni. So you'll actually see as I'm scrolling down here that there have been some situations where alumni have used this group for that. There was a free online COVID tracking course. I think we have a couple other posts from Sarah and Anna. Then we also have some posts from other alumni who want to share what they're doing, sharing some articles about Matt's recent company. And in addition, sharing a couple of highlights of Quakers doing incredible things at the UN climate speech. So a little bit further down the line here, we also did start to see some recruiting requests if you are looking for jobs. So I would definitely highly recommend everyone on this call to start using this group pretty actively, as it's a great way to engage and even do some of that softer networking with people that you might not know, but might have really, really cool roles and experiences that you could benefit from learning about. And Andy, I'm going to head over to the alumni or the Sidwell Friends School page if you want to voice over there too.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lesley. Yeah, so on this page, this is publicly available. I think, Lesley, you might have to go to the home page first before going to that page. I'm not positive.
I'll try.
Yeah, we'll try
It's a
that.
good tip. This is, in fact, something you have to do when moving
Right,
between
yeah,
the
exactly.
two.
Yeah, because the search bar, if you're in a group, like it wants to help you that you can then search within the group for different posts. But then if you're searching for something totally different on LinkedIn, you got to go back to the homepage. Luckily, it doesn't take too long. But you can see here, so there are 301 employees on LinkedIn who work at Sidwell. But then, for more our sake, unless we want to work at Sidwell one day, is the fact that you can see there at the top, it says 2255 plus alumni that have Sidwell as part of their LinkedIn profiles. So Lesley, if you can hit that alumni tab there on the left, this is super cool. To be honest, we were telling the team earlier today in our prep call that Lesley and I were sort of geeking out about this because we frankly didn't know all the capabilities, which is pretty cool. But you can see a bunch of things, you know, where people live from Sidwell, what companies they work for, what roles they're in, et cetera. So maybe I'm looking for a job in New York City or Greater New York. So Lesley, click like Greater New York right there. And then what's cool is it's going to actually, as you scroll down, pull up all of the people who went to Sidwell, again, who have Sidwell on their profile, who work in New York. So actually, Eliza was in my grade at Sidwell. I didn't know that she was in New York now, or Justin was also in my grade. So if I want to start reaching out to people to try to find my way in at a company in New York, like what better way than to reach out to a Sidwell alum for this? Then Lesley, if you go back to the top and search for Deloitte, popular consulting firm, under keywords there, you can take off New York or you can keep it either way. You can stack these searches on top of each other. But yeah, if you click for Deloitte, and then as you scroll down, we're going to start to see employees at Deloitte who, again, went to Sidwell. So this is really cool. Herschel was in Lesley's grade. Naomi was a year younger, one of my good friend's sister, et cetera. So if I want to start reaching out to these people, these are all people who either work at Deloitte currently or have worked at Deloitte as well. So if you want to learn about, okay, you know, maybe they intern there and you want to get an internship if you're still in college, or, you know, you want to figure out why somebody may have left a company and you want to share that experience if you do work at that company, like who knows? And then finally, you can search by role as well. So maybe I'm, you know, a software engineer, I'm looking for other software engineering opportunities. You can also do that here. And again, I'm pretty sure like with keywords, it can really be anything. But for the sake of just a role that you might be looking for, now we're going to be able to see all the people who, again, went to Sidwell, the 89 alumni who have software engineering and Sidwell on their LinkedIn profiles, which is pretty cool. And you can scroll down and start seeing those folks as well. So that's that. I'm pretty sure that was everything that we were going to show. Lesley, any final ads before we go to the Q&A?
No, just really looking forward to answering your specific questions. I hope this was a valuable, very quick breeze through.
Great. Well, we are going to move into the Q&A portion of this program, and please, everyone, use the chat feature to share your questions. I am also going to share that we in the alumni office really use LinkedIn anytime we get personal requests from alumni asking, you know, do you know anyone who's a pharmacist that I might be able to connect with? I'm thinking about going into pharmacy, or you know, I'm looking to connect with people in the entertainment industry. And LinkedIn is really, this is a very great tool. We use it in our office, and it's really the most up-to-date place where you can find information about other alumni. Alumni update their information on LinkedIn quicker than they call us to let us know that they moved across the country or got a new role. So we really encourage people to use this as kind of their go-to place to find other alumni. We do have an online alumni directory on the website, and that's really the best place to look for classmates information. If you kind of know who you're looking for and you're looking to simply find some contact info, that's really what that tool is designed for. But LinkedIn is really more of this place to network. Outside of that, if you do ever have a request around networking, please feel free to email the alumni inbox. We are here to help you with that. That's why Anna and I are here at Sidwell, is to help other alumni connect with each other. And kind of outside of LinkedIn, going to alumni events, whether they're virtual or in person. We have regional clubs across the country in some major cities, and we're going to be doing a lot of other programs like this for a while. These are great places to meet other alums in just a whole host of capacities, over personal interests that you might share, outside of, kind of a strict networking capacity. So with that, I'm going to pose my first question from me, and then I encourage everyone to start laying up your questions there in the chat for us, and Tom will kind of move them over to Andy and Lesley. My question is for anyone who had a summer internship lined up. I know we have a lot of younger alums on this call, and that internship kind of, fell through because of what has happened over the last few months. Do you have any tips for those people about how they might use LinkedIn over the summer to either further their education or their professional kind of path?
Great question. Lesley, do you want to take it, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah, sure. I feel like you're going to hopefully do a little bit of a learning plug, so I'm hoping that ties in. But I do have to be, just quite frank. This is a situation that a lot of people are in. Whether it's internships or actually, unfortunately being impacted in their full-time role. And so number one thing to know is just that you're not in it alone. I know it can be incredibly stressful and disappointing to be in the situation, and we are here to help. So I'd kind of offer two recommendations. Number one is, as much as possible, use this time to really kind of leverage and research different company cultures on LinkedIn and how they are responding to the current events, be it the pandemic or responding to other things going on in the world. This is truly a time where companies are realizing that they have to take seriously their employees' health and their employees' happiness. And so out of that, a lot of companies are doing a lot more when it comes to networking, offering free events to job seekers, and in general, trying to help other people out. So number one would be start to do some company research on companies that you might want to target, whether you're looking for another internship or a full-time position. You can find new companies by searching for companies that you already know of, and then looking at the suggested companies on the right-hand side. So let's say you are looking at a Google, for example, you'll be able to see kind of known peers and competitors of Google and continue to follow them along the way. And then my second recommendation would be to really use this time to do some informational interviews. I know this can be incredibly scary, especially if you find yourself a little bit earlier in career, honestly, like myself. The best way to do that is to approach it with a kind of culture and spirit of humility, in my perspective, of, hey, I'm a student. I was unfortunately, not able to go through with my internship or with my role this summer. Wanted to grab 15 minutes of your time to learn about what I can be focusing on for my development. And you'll never know how incredibly impactful that 15 minutes could be with that person that you reach out to, whether they're a Sidwell alum or someone else. There's been a lot of just shared kind of empathy and compassion in the current time. And if you are vulnerable about being a student and just wanting to learn about how to develop, you can get some really great nuggets about different opportunities to look for, different classes to take. And so definitely use this time to exercise that informational interview muscle. Andy, I don't know if any LinkedIn learning videos would also be helpful, or some other suggestions too.
Yeah, so Lesley's right. probably was always going to plug continuing to learn during this time. I mean, who doesn't love to learn? We all went to Sidwell. So there are a couple resources that you can leverage. LinkedIn Learning obviously is a library of 15,000 e-learning courses that you can take for your development. It's not currently free, but you can do a 30-day free trial, which is pretty helpful if you know that you're going to be able to use this time this summer to really commit to, learning a new coding language, or, brushing up on presentation skills or interview skills. We have a ton of stuff around that, or even just building your personal brand. Coursera is another resource where they record college courses and post them online. They're doing a lot of free content right now. edX is another one as well that has that Khan Academy, which I certainly used in high school and college. I don't know if you use that a lot, maybe take a break from that one. But then also, I would say also, like, don't give up. You can still find, if you need to get paid this summer, you can find opportunities. Handshake is a great resource that some of your colleges may use already, but they published an article. I think it's something like 3,000 opportunities that people that are hiring students right now. I'm also an investor in a company called Mentorly. Highly recommend it. It's Mentorli. You can download the app as well. And what that does is you can look at a list of people who across the country who have designated themselves as mentors, and they want to help people find jobs and opportunities. So you can connect with them. And then, the idea is you never have to apply cold ever again to a company. So you can hopefully get a referral from one of those folks as well. Just another means besides LinkedIn to find cool people at companies you may want to work for.
I have a question that I'm hoping Tom might be able to speak to a little bit, and Lesley and Andy as well, about how staying in touch with faculty can be a benefit to you as a Sidwell alum. I know Tom has a few stories of alumni who have kind of networked through him to attain some professional positions or to get connected with people. I'm not sure, Tom, if you would want to share any kind of stories like that, or stories in general, of alumni networking with each other. I know you have a lot of experience in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly had some success with placing people in different spots. I just think, I think what Lesley was talking about is super important for everyone to remember, that the informational interview. I think that's this low stakes thing, like everybody has 10, 15 minutes just to chat. And it's really, it's great because your guard's down and you get a sense of what this person is like. And everyone will realize that the longer they're in any sort of organization, that the skills are important, but it's really just, you want to be around like normal, nice human beings. And the informational interview gives you a better sense of that than an actual interview. So if you come across somebody like that, and then then you generally you either if you have something, or you can connect with somebody directly, you can, or maybe that happens later. But I think it's helpful to do that.
I'd love to ask you guys a question as well. I think one of the things that was a great piece of advice that was given to me early on in my career was that you can learn just as much from the experiences that are positive as the experiences you have that are negative, whether it's a job that you take or an internship you take that you don't like, or working with folks you don't necessarily get along with. Are there some stories you guys could share from your own personal experiences? And Tom, we'd love to hear from you as well, maybe about some of those experiences that weren't necessarily so positive, and kind of what you learned from them and how you were able to take them on to make your next step more positive after that.
Absolutely. I can start. So throughout college, I was a journalism major, as I told you all earlier, and then I had a marketing focus. I never really knew, I said, all right, I know I don't want to write articles all day. There are people who love and do that. But I said, all right, the business side of journalism is marketing. That's what I'm going to do. And I did a few marketing internships, but what I realized was I had headphones on, all day, and I was just doing, PowerPoint presentations. I was putting together infographics. I was working on like a marketing full, as an intern, they don't give you the best work all the time. But what I realized is there's got to be more. And that's why I started to look for business like rotational programs later on. So it definitely didn't help that at one of my marketing internships, my manager was pretty bad. When I sell LinkedIn Learning, I think in pretty much every call that I've had, people say their managers are not up to par or what they should be. So, if you're working with a difficult manager, you're not alone in that either. So that definitely didn't help. But I realized that I love to be customer facing, people facing. I get energy from those conversations as an extrovert that I am. So I think that just as important as like understanding if a role is a good fit for you is also, do you like working in groups, or do you like working alone? Do you like talking to people all day, or do you not? Whatever it may be, just even those little tidbits, or like even just a culture that you're looking for, or a type of manager. Do you want a hands-on manager versus a hands-off manager? I'm somebody who actually takes pride in the fact that I like a hands-on manager, but not micromanaging, but more hands-on. Some people are like, I don't want to talk to my manager except for a one-on-one each week or something like that. So it's a great point, Anna. I think like even those little components are really important too.
I'd add, I have two stories to share. One is around the internship process. And in the internship process, I was in my junior year of college, and I had applied to, I think my number was about 71 internships. By the time January rolled around, I don't know how familiar with this group is with just kind of the internship process. It's highly competitive. And I hadn't made up my mind on whether I wanted to do like something in consulting, which is like what everyone was doing, and I felt like I was missing out. Or like try to do something in the environmental world, which is where, a lot of my academic studies had shown up. And so I was just feeling honestly super discouraged. Sending out my resume 71 times was not fun. And it was also not fun that I had tried to write cover letters for almost every one of those. So I just found myself, around the New Year holiday feeling really discouraged and down. But I realized that in that process, I was trying way too hard to be what I thought everyone like wanted me to be. I was applying to roles that transparently, my dad was very much so in support of. I was applying to things that my friends had said that they applied to and not getting it. And finally, in trying to find an internship, I started taking a more like me-based approach. And I started thinking about like, what do I like what people am I gravitating towards? I ended up doing a research internship at an executive search firm, which is probably the most random thing you could ever imagine. But because I found people that I gravitated towards and I honestly really connected with them throughout the interview process, I was able to have a really strong recommendation and an offer letter to then leverage in future kind of negotiations when I came to LinkedIn. So I would just say if you find yourself kind of constantly going against the wall, try to look to the root of what might be getting you there against the wall. Is it your expectations? Is it what other people are putting on you? I learned a lot from that. The other one, that small one that I'll mention, is that my experience in sales at LinkedIn was certainly a very taxing experience. Sales is a wonderful profession. I highly recommend it for people that are early in career. I think it's absolutely essential. But when it comes to long term, I was finding myself really drained at the end of the day and not able to be myself, as the weekend came along. Even so, to the fact that I would hit my quota at the end of every month and I would almost kind of feel numb inside in a way. And what that taught me was that even, hitting the bar of excellence or doing the right thing or like performing isn't really what I should be aiming for. It's, can I find kind of energy in every single day? And luckily I was able to find that role that I talked about earlier. So totally agree with you, Anna, that the negative experiences I think are sometimes more formative than the positive ones.
Yeah, and Andy, I don't want you to feel bad about not going to the role of finance. I think it shows you have a soul. And I want to say, I actually didn't want to go in either. I wanted to work for a tech company. but I didn't have magical tools like this. I ended up I was in London walking down the hallway and literally like ran into a guy because I couldn't pass him in the hallway, and found out he worked for Merrill Lynch and needed someone to take over his internship. And that's the only reason. I didn't even know what Merrill Lynch was. I'm just, a kid from Virginia. I didn't know how to sell insurance. I didn't know what. So then I ended up going into financial because of that. So, I would have loved to have had a tool like this. But we do have, I think, Sarah, there's one question, time for this one question, right? Okay. So someone wrote, I don't know who it was, but how might LinkedIn be helpful if we're interested in trying a new area that we might not have much, in which we might not have much work experience?
Yes, I love this. 2 recommendations for you for that new area. Number 1 is talk about it in your summary. If you are looking to make a transition from one field to another, or if you're feeling kind of, self-conscious about what you have in your listed work experience, I think the summary section is a great way to say, you know what, I'm Lesley, I have a background in technology, however, I'd like to pivot into veterinary studies, and this is why. And based on my background in business, I will be able to bring this to a team. So I would say 1, start off with a summary. And then 2, I would really recommend looking for some of those companies in that new industry or in that new function, following them to start to get a sense for what's happening in that industry and start to pick up on some trends that could either help you in the job transition process or just help you get in touch with different people to connect with.
Totally.
Go ahead, Andy.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I was just going to quickly jump. I would say what we've noticed, again, in LinkedIn Learning, the only thing that I've done, but what we've noticed is that soft skills are way more sought after than technical skills. So yes, like if you want to go from marketing to software engineering, you're probably going to learn how to code, and you can go through programs for that. And there are tons of even free resources online for that, or, coding boot camps exist, et cetera. But if you can notice that soft skills are transferable. Like, for example, I was talking with a Sidwell alum today, Bobby Beecher, who is in my grade. I haven't actually talked to him in probably 8 years since we've graduated. But he said, Andy, I'm looking to go from law into something in tech, like whether it's sales, marketing, operations. And he said, it's a completely different field. Like, how do I do that? And I said, Bobby, like the soft skills that you get from being a lawyer, the negotiation skills, the communication skills, the research skills, like all of that converts, like all of that can be transferred. So thinking about it from that perspective, rather than, there's this invisible wall between 2 things that don't necessarily seem like they go together.
I was just going to add that this is also where the Sidwell Friends Network can really be helpful for folks. There are people within this community that literally do everything. So if there's something you're looking for, there's probably a Sidwell alum who does it. Whether that's a person you can find on LinkedIn, or whether you need to reach out to Sarah and me to try to help do some additional research to figure out who those folks are. Reaching out to another person in this community, simply just to ask them their advice and ask that same question is always going to be helpful. And we're always happy to aid and be helpful to you in that any way we can.
I think I was thinking exactly what Anna was saying, because we work in the same office and this is what we do. I think the beauty of being a part of this particular network is that generally people are very open to connecting with you. And you would be surprised at people who are very accomplished in their field, who are willing to connect with someone who's making a career change in the middle of their career, or someone who's much younger, or has a different experience for whatever reason. We've connected alums who are looking to move across the country with contacts in their field on the other end of the country. We've connected people early on in their careers. We're an additional tool for you to reach out to, or you can reach out to us and say, hey, I saw that Sarah Duda is the CEO at, Duda Farm, and I want to get into agriculture, and I'd love to connect with her. Do you have any tips? Can you read through my message before I send it to them? Anything kind of like that. That's why we're here. So with that, I do want to be mindful of everyone's time in this digital world that we're living in and kind of bring things to a close. If you have any questions after this program, please feel free to email us at alumni@sidwell.edu. We are very happy to connect you with Andy and Lesley. I recommend that everyone go ahead and go to LinkedIn, in the next few days and make sure that Sidwell is listed in your education so that other alums can find you. Join that LinkedIn group as well. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you again. And everyone enjoy your evening.
So much, Andy.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you all.
And
Connect with us.
Wonderful evening, guys. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.